And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the season, and also kind of had a question about a specific kind of like trap game that I kind of foresaw when I was looking over the schedule. But the first thing that I just get so sick and tired of, I lived in a bunch of states in the South in deep SEC country, and I know Feinbaum all too well. And it's just crazy to me now that people think that Lincoln Riley can't coach. I mean, like when they talk about the fact that, you know, his failures in the college football playoff, never mind you the fact that he actually got there, but now they have Sark rated ahead of him, even though Sark just finally got to a playoff. But let's go down the list with Riley. OU in 17, they lose to a great Georgia team that should have won the national title. 18, Bama jumps out to a big lead. They can't catch them, they lose. Lose to LSU 19, who everybody, ESPN basically anoints the greatest team since either 04 USC or 01 Miami. I mean, those are his losses. Like, never once did he have the best team. And add that in there, he's one of the few guys that could also say that he beat Urban Meyer. Like, people forget that big win that he had, and that's why coming into this season, I feel when we're talking about the schedule, we got those 4 big games. We got LSU to start, we got Michigan, we got Penn State, and we got Notre Dame at the back end. I still, like you initially, Tim, have the team going 9-3, but I hope that we can just split the 2 of the 4 games. And for recruiting momentum, it'd be great to start off with an LSU win. I really feel good about the win against Penn State. And as the injuries pile up with Notre Dame, maybe we get to 10-2. But that's kind of the way that I see it. How do you guys see it?
I think I need to get like an applause meter or something, because we get so many great calls. Benji, where you been for the past year and a half? I mean, that's just that you just for a first call, you kind of
been in grad school and it's finally year 3. Things are a little bit easier now.
You want to come in and sit in here? You can grab this. I'll go relax on the couch and watch you guys on the TV. Why don't you come in for the 3rd hour and you can cover this, because you did it more eloquently than I probably ever could. Yeah, that Georgia loss was in overtime too, you know, and there's a late interception in that game. Otherwise, we're talking about Riley playing the championship game. There's this weird thing. The same way, I mean, there's not a lot of people out there, especially the Michigan fans, that like Ryan Day, but Ryan Day was everyone talk about Ryan Day as this loser. He can't get there, fire him. He's on the hot seat. He was a shanked field goal away from being a national championship coach in the playoffs. So, I mean, people forget the little things, and they want to build this narrative that, oh, he can't win, etc. You know, I think that where Riley, I think probably hurt his image the most. We all know it as SC fans, and we're going to say it. It was hanging on to Grinch, because the people, for whatever the rationale is on that one, and I'm guaranteed, listen, the man probably forgets daily football that more about football daily than I know. You know, I talk about oh gosh, should I even say this on the mic? No, I won't. But people get on coaches all the time, and these guys know infinitely more about football than all of us probably collectively do. But that move is just baffling, and people have been hammering for it. But I agree, it's a narrative that's overplayed. You know, he had his reasons for what he did. Well, was it the right decision? Maybe not. But it's not like he said, well, he's my the narrative that he was his buddy and all this other stuff. I think is a bit overplayed. And so that one escapes me, Benji. But
yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. You gonna say something?
Well, if we think about Grinch, he got the job because of what he did at Ohio State. And this is why from day one, when I found out that USC was going to the Big Ten, I almost feel in a way Riley set himself up for failure with the success in year 1. Yeah. But at the same time, he was unlucky because his tenure at USC has coincided with what I had to hear for years while I was working in the South. The Pac-12 is soft. The Pac-12 can't play. They don't have any good teams. The last 2 years, the Pac-12 from top to bottom has been as every good as any other conference in America. And unfortunately for Riley and having Grinch, and to my point about him being at Ohio State, look at the games where USC had success defensively despite the horrendous defenses. Playing against Notre Dame in 22, playing against Notre Dame last year despite the debacle on the offensive side of the football. In the second half, they didn't do as well in 22 against UCLA, but that kind of like really strong game that they had in Corvallis as well. Grinch was okay when he was dealing against inferior passers and wide receivers. It covered up the warts. He got highly exposed coming into the Pac-12. Now with Danton Lynn coming in, going into the Big Ten with the horrendous offensive play that's there, it gets to my question I wanted to ask about the trap game that I foresee. When I always hear that everybody says USC is soft and they're going to have to play big boy football. Well, last time I checked, Maryland hadn't done anything, but for the last 2 years, they've gone 8-5. And those losses that they've had in the loss column of those 5 has been because they played against superior talent in Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. And most of those games were close, even in the losses. And that is a wide open offense with decent quarterback play. Basically, USC does everything that Maryland does better than them. So I think the offense, and then Purdue also ended up winning the Big Ten West a couple of years ago, another spread offense. So this idea that spread offenses aren't going to work in the Big Ten, I believe, is a huge fallacy. But I do think that that is the trap game where I see the third loss, even if USC were to split the 4 big games. Maryland kind of worries me a little bit. I think that kind of turns into that old school style Pac-12 shootout where they're dealing against a Washington State back in the day, or going up there and kind of last year, the shootout that they had with Arizona. So that's kind of the trap game that I worry about is Maryland.
I am 100% on board with identifying Maryland as the trap game, because you look at it, Tim just helpfully pulled up the schedule. It's right after the big one against Penn State. So like that Penn State game is going to be physically and emotionally draining. Maryland's the next week. And, we don't have an announced kickoff time. You can see it's to be announced. But Rutgers is a Friday the next week. So I've been saying that the most likely kickoff time for this game is noon. So 9 a.m. Pacific. So that's a body clock game. And I don't know, I know that Jackson Johnson, host of the Jacksonian, he's here in the chat. I know that Jackson and other people who know their college football history, they will tell you, remember when Jeff Tedford brought one of his Cal teams to Maryland, to College Park for an early game back in the day, but in the Pete Carroll era, 2006, 2007, 2008, somewhere in there, Cal was just flat as a pancake, didn't hit the alarm clock. It was a classic West Coast body clock defeat against Maryland in a noon Eastern game. So I'm thinking that game's going to be noon, again, because you have Rutgers on a Friday, so they're going to want to maximize the turnaround time for USC. That game just screams like the trapdoor, letdown, ambush, sandwich, whatever you want to call it. That's definitely the game I have circled as like the game that USC is going to need to watch out for this year. Great call on your part.
Yeah, and so let me circle all the way back. So you talked about how Lincoln Riley did himself a disservice. We've been talking about narratives, right? About how he does himself a disservice, set himself up for the looking bad last year. Isn't it crazy in our society? That's the narrative, right? That they lost that bowl game in kind of freakish fashion, and then all the attention went to the defense, and then when all the attention went to Grinch. Nobody talked about the fact that he took an absolute dumpster fire in 2021 and turned it into an 11-win team in 2022. And that goes back to what I said is people, look, they're looking for a reason to hammer Lincoln Riley, because this is where, hold on, put my arrogant hat on. So the reason is they're all whistling past the graveyard. Because everybody that's older than 20 years old knows what USC can do when they have the right administration, but more importantly, the right head coach and the right coaching staff. That's the third part of it. We've had some really good head coaches in our past, not very good coaching staffs, and we've had some pretty questionable seasons. But if you put those 3 things together, USC does what very few teams can do, go and be as dominant as they go and do. And that's what has a lot of people, I think, again, whistling past the graveyard and thinking, oh, this is USC. Those guys sucked forever. They're always trying to bury USC. Well, and then we were talking about Grinch and the problem with Grinch's defenses and how he'd really hang. It just seemed like there's a lot of pressure putting the corners and the secondary, guys on islands and stuff where those big chunk plays would get gashed, etc. That's the comment that came out of from LSU Wire, is one of our in the College Wire network. I wrote on it, and they were basically talking about how that Blake Baker kind of does that as well with his defenses, and he got away with it at Missouri because he had lockdown, corners. Like we had, Mekhi Blackman kind of covered up some issues as well. On USC in 2022 being a solid corner, whereas in 2023 that wasn't there. And there's some concerns at LSU that they just have some younger or unproven corners in their secondary. And that's what I'm saying. I think USC could take advantage. Going back to Adam and talk about how they USC might attack this LSU defense. So great call.
Well,
listen, I could talk to you.
Should just be looking at tape. Yeah, I could talk to you guys all day long. I will just say this. My prediction is going to be 31-21 for USC over LSU. I think if you just look at the tape from Tennessee when they played LSU a couple of years back, the wide receivers, the sophomore crew that we got is going to be too much for them. But fight on, guys, and thanks for my call.
Fight on. And, again, we're going to have to call out Benji for not sharing that kind of a call with us for the past season and a half. That's why I'm trying to tell all you guys, first-time callers or people that have not called in, that have never called in, this is your damn show. You guys listen, the reason, the brainchild behind all this was I've had so many conversations in tailgates over the years, in stadiums with a guy next to me. I know there's so much, information out there amongst just we're called the casual fan, but I'm telling you, you guys bring it every week, and I appreciate all of you guys being here.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.